Gather around, fight fans. The latest edition of the WWE series of games has just been released in the form of WWE 2K22.
After the disastrous WWE 2K20, which was critically panned,
the developer 2K decided to take a full year off and skipped WWE 2K21 altogether and focus on developing the best possible game in the form of WWE 2K22. Right off the bat, visually, the changes are strikingly apparent. The character models in the game look amazingly good, some of which are almost impossible to tell apart from their real-life counterparts. This is due in part to the newer scanning technologies employed by 2K to scan existing wrestlers, as well as improvements that were made to the in-game engine and tweaks to the lighting, sometimes making it difficult to distinguish between in-game footage and actual live WWE footage. The facial animations of the wrestlers also seem to have received a major overhaul, with the facial animations of the wrestlers looking a lot more realistic. The biggest change in the game comes in the form of a completely new control scheme. The face buttons of a controller are assigned to a strong attack, a light attack, a grapple button, and a block button. Unlike the counter button in previous games, the block button has a lot more functionality. It can be used to counter moves. It also puts your wrestler into a blocking stance, similar to games like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. It also allows your wrestler to dodge, and your quicker wrestlers can roll out of the way, avoiding certain attacks. Each wrestler also has combos, which can be accessed by pressing a certain combination of buttons, which usually start with an attack and can either end in a grabber move or an attack. This felt a lot like a fighting game like Mortal Kombat or Tekken, whereby inputting a series of button presses would result in a combo. I really enjoyed the use of combos because it's made the game feel a lot more fresh, and performing moves felt a lot more organic. Similar to fighting games, your opponent can also break these combos by trying to guess which button you're currently inputting and then pressing the same button as well. What felt weird to me was that in order for you to Irish whip your opponent, you first need to get into a grapple hold and then thereafter do the Irish whip rather than doing an Irish whip directly. Unlike with previous games, you have an unlimited number of reversals, meaning that the match swings back and forth depending on how skilled you are at reversing your opponent's moves. Some of the more wrestling sim type of elements have been removed from the game, such as the stamina meter, making the action feel more like a fighting game than that of a wrestling sim. Personally, I enjoy this approach to the game as it made the game feel completely new and fresh too. If you take a strong hit from your opponent, you are temporarily stunned and susceptible to being pinned. The pin mechanism has now been changed to button mashing rather than trying to complete a minigame to kick out of the pin like with previous games. The gauges in WWE 2K22 have been completely overhauled as well, with one gauge for the overall health of your wrestler, a second gauge which when filled allows your wrestler to perform a finishing move, and a third gauge which can be built up to either perform a signature move or which could also be utilized to perform a defensive move to get out of a tough situation. To perform a finisher, signature, or a comeback move, you need to hit one of the shoulder buttons accompanied by one of the face buttons on a controller. It takes a little while to get used to pressing two buttons to perform one of these moves, but you get used to it pretty quickly. As with previous games, WWE 2K22 has a variety of creation modes. Right off the bat, you have a starting class which defines the body type of your wrestler. It's nice to see them adding support for some of the bigger body types, allowing you to create wrestlers such as Yokozuna and Mabel, etc. As always, you can edit the facial features of your wrestlers to try and make the person look as realistic as possible, or to try and make an actual living person as well. You can import textures to apply to the face, adding that extra level of realism. The game has a few sample textures, and you also have the ability to upload your own textures to the 2K servers, which can be then downloaded into your game and applied to your created wrestler. Where the creation mode is taken a step backwards is in the sculpting of the body. Unlike with previous games where you could control the shape and size of each individual body part, this game you have to choose between a predefined selection of body shapes. The other create modes in the game remain largely unchanged, with the exception of create an entrance. With previous games you had an advanced entrance creator whereby you could define the animations for each part of the entrance. That is the stage, the ramp, the entrance into the ring and the ring itself, allowing you to mix and match entrance motions. Whilst the game does include a few extra entrance motions for wrestlers who were previously in the game, such as Mark Henry, removal of the advanced entrance feature feels like the game is taking a step backwards in this regard. This year's showcase mode focuses on the career of Rey Mysterio. It plays very much the same as the showcase modes in previous games, whereby you play through a series of historical matches and you try to recreate the match as closely as possible by following the in-game objectives. Successfully completing these objectives triggers a cutscene, which in this case switches to the actual video footage of the match, unlike with previous games which scripted the entire flow of the match using the in-game engine. Commentary around the matches is provided by Rey Mysterio, which provides a nice insight into what he was actually thinking as the match transpired. Overall, I really enjoyed this mode. I found that it was quite engaging and fun, as I've been a fan of Rey Mysterio since his days in ECW, all the way through to WWE. It provided a nice sense of nostalgia, whilst also teaching you the new control scheme of the game. I would have liked the mode to have focused a bit more on his WCW career, as he had some really awesome matches with some of the other cruiserweights, such as Psychosis and Juventud Guerrera. However, I assume that the game didn't take this route, as they probably couldn't get the licenses for using the likenesses of these wrestlers. A completely new feature which has been added to 2K22 is the My Faction mode, whereby the goal is to build the ultimate faction of 4 people. You are given perks to boost each of the wrestlers in your faction. There are daily bonuses for constantly checking into this mode. And there are towers and other challenges which you can play through to improve the strength of your faction. Overall, this mode provided a lot of depth and was quite a fun mode to play as well. However, the only shortcoming for me was that you couldn't play this mode online with other players as well. The return of the GM mode is a feature that has been largely requested by fans over the years. You are firstly given the choice to select a general manager, with each of the general managers having a special ability. You are then asked to choose a brand, and then thereafter do a draft of wrestlers just like in real life. Your draft can be a manual process, or you can let the computer automatically select a draft for you. You thereafter need to book a show, whereby you select the participants and the types of matches you wish to have. Sadly, the mode only allows for 1-on-1 and 2-on-2 matches. However, you can add different types of match varieties for the 1-on-1 and 2-on-2 mode, such as Extreme Rules, Table, etc. The game advises you to try and get better ratings by pitting your good guy characters against your bad guy characters, or your heels against your faces, and also by putting against different types of wrestlers against others, such as a cruiserweight against a brawler, for instance. After booking your show, you can either simulate or spectate the show that you've booked, and you are awarded a rating based on the matches which you have created. You're then given a summary of the show that you've booked, so you can see where your show performed well and where it didn't, and you're also given advice as to how you should have structured your show. You can earn money for each brand through the sale of pay-per-view tickets, as well as network deals, depending on how well your show performs. Overall, this mode performed quite well. It was quite interesting and engaging to play. However, it is only limited to 50 weeks, and I found that it was a bit lacking when it came to the inclusion of features. That being said, it was a nice addition to the game, and hopefully future versions of the game improve on the features in this mode. The My Rise mode of the game is pretty much the same as the previous iterations. You start off by creating a wrestler, whereby you assign the wrestler a specific background, and this background affects the story mode of the game. Your objective here is to take a relatively unknown wrestler which you create, take him through the WWE Performance Center, all the way to becoming the top star in WWE. As you progress in the story, you are given different prompts as to which direction you wish to take with your character. The decisions you make will determine whether you become a face or a heel character, good guy or bad guy. Whilst this was a fun mode to play, I found that the voice acting in some of these segments was not fantastically done, and some of the character models that appear in this mode don't match the level of quality as the in-game wrestlers. Finally, the universe mode in the game remains largely unchanged, with the exception that you now have the option to play as a specific superstar or use the free-for-all sandbox mode, which was in previous games. Like with previous games, you can customize your roster, you can change the number of matches, you can add different championships, edit rivalries, etc. You're then given the option of either simulating or playing through your matches, or changing the matches as you see fit. Aside from a few new additional cutscenes in the game, this mode remains largely unchanged. Alright, that covers all the modes in the game. So for the final verdict, overall the game feels a lot more fun and fresh to play. It takes a little while to get used to some of the changes, particularly the controls and also the lower camera angle when playing matches. However, you get used to these fairly quickly. As I mentioned earlier, the game plays more like a fighting game than a wrestling sim, which for me was a lot more fun. That being said, the game is not without its issues. As previously mentioned, some features have been stripped away from some of the creation modes, and the GM mode isn't fleshed out as much as it could be. Whilst the majority of the character models in the game look fantastic, there are some character models which are pretty bad. If you look at Hogan's model, for example, it doesn't really look like Hogan, and I feel that previous versions of the game had a much more better likeness of Hogan. Speaking of Hogan, the pricing of the game is quite steep. If you buy the standard edition of the Steam version of the game, it'll set you back 1069 rands. The deluxe edition, which comes with the season pass, which includes all of the future DLC characters which will be added to the game. At present, it's announced that there will be 28 additional characters added to the game. This edition will cost you 1789 rands. If you buy the NWO version, this is more than double the price of the standard version, selling for 2139 rands. The NWO version contains all of the additional perks of the deluxe edition, but also contains additional attires for Hogan, Hall and Nash, as well as Six. You get a playable Eric Bischoff, as well as some WCW arenas. As always, playing the game with some of your friends actually makes the game a lot more fun. The game engine is actually optimized a lot better than previous versions of the game, making it run a lot better on my computer. I don't have the highest end gaming computer. However, the engine runs between 50 to 60 frames per second without issue, running at a full 1080p on my computer. So all in all, I'd rate the game a 7 out of 10. The reason for this is because I feel that whilst the game has been revamped, the gameplay is fresh, there are a lot of modes which have taken a step backwards, and it's due to these shortcomings that I feel the game is good rather than great. Thank you very much for watching this review of WWE 2K22 on my channel. Please remember to like, share and subscribe if you liked this video to get more awesome content. post your opinions of the game in the comments below. Until next time, happy gaming and take care.